free heart, refreshing souls are set apart. Come to the well, receive His life, living water, endless life.
Hello and welcome to Well and Grace, the podcast where we seek to nourish our hearts with the living word and find grace in our daily journeys. I'm your host, Regina Bartlett, and today's topic is one that I believe touches every single one of us: handling the pressure to achieve. In a world that measures success by productivity, status, and external validation, we often feel overwhelmed, burdened, and even unworthy when we don't measure up. But here's the good news. We don't have to carry this weight alone. The Bible is full of wisdom that equips us to face these pressures with grace and strength. As we dive in today's message, I want to ground us in this promise from Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. This verse reminds us that achievement in any form is not dependent solely on our striving, abilities, or hustle. Instead, we draw strength, courage, and clarity from Jesus Christ, our ever-present source of grace. When I think of pressure, I envision climbing a mountain, like you're standing at the base of an enormous peak, and the summit seems impossibly far away. You're equipped with a backpack, some tools, maybe even a plan, but the climb still feels insurmountable. What happens when you stumble, when the path grows steep or the air feels thin? For many of us, these moments of pressure are when self-doubt creeps in and whispers, "You're not enough. You can't do this." But let's remember 2 Corinthians 12:9. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. The truth is, we don't have to climb the mountain in our own strength. God is the one who equips us. His strength fills the gaps where we fall short. When we're weak, He shows Himself strong. If you're feeling overwhelmed today, whether in your career, parenting, ministry, or personal goals, pause and ask yourself, am I trying to carry this on my own? Release that pressure into God's hands and trust Him to guide you every step. But how do we do that? The key to handling pressure comes from Matthew 6:33, which reads, Seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. The world often tells us that achievement is about more money, more recognition, more accomplishment, more followers. But Jesus flips this perspective. He calls us to seek Him first. But what does that mean to seek God's kingdom in a practical way? It means asking questions like, how does this goal align with God's purpose for my life? It means inviting Him into the planning process and surrendering the outcome. It means trusting that when we pursue Him first, He will provide what we truly need, not always what we think we need, but what's best for us. You see, when we realign our focus to prioritize God, our goals transform. Instead of striving for approval or success, we strive to honor Him, and in return, He promises to meet us with peace and provision. If you're feeling lost in a sea of expectations, take a deep breath and reflect. Am I seeking God's kingdom first? That deep breath can be hard, and let's face it, pausing is almost countercultural. In Psalm 46:10, God says, "Be still and know that I am God." Remember, our society glorifies the hustle and the busyness. Rest can feel like a luxury, or worse, like a failure. But rest isn't laziness, and it's not avoidance. Rest is a divine invitation to pause and reconnect with the one who created us. Think of Jesus during His ministry on earth. Even He, in His fully human form, took time to withdraw, to pray, and to rest. If the Son of God needed moments of stillness to reconnect with His Father, how much more do we? Rest allows us to recalibrate and remember who we're working for and why. It gives God space to speak into our lives. When we're constantly on the go, we risk missing hearing His voice and direction. Now, I wrote this episode a few weeks ago, and just the other day, I was speaking with a ministry team that I work with, and I shared my first experience with Matthew 11:28. I was returning to Christ after being mired in atheism for years, and I read, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." I immediately started crying, and not a gentle cry. It was a deep, soul, almost embarrassing cry. I realized in that moment just how tired I was. I was exhausted trying to balance everything, keep up appearances, not show emotion, making sure that everything seemed like it was okay, even when everything was falling apart. I was exhausted. And it was like all the plates I was so desperately trying to spin in the air came crashing down. And they needed to. But it was a while later when I read and really took in the next part. "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest within your soul. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." You see, when Jesus says, "Take my yoke upon you" in Matthew 11:29, He's inviting us to join with Him in a relationship of learning and discipleship. In biblical times, a yoke was a wooden bar or frame used to join two animals, often oxen, for the purpose of working together, plowing fields. If one slowed down, the other was able to pick up. They were working in tandem to accomplish this goal. By using this metaphor, Jesus is offering us a partnership where we work alongside Him, guided by His strength and His wisdom. When you do this, you take this journey with Him. He bears the burdens. Connect with Him in your rest. Rest is never nothing. It is time for a soul reconnection. And if this feels uncomfortable for you, here are some ways that you can embrace rest. Spend quiet time in prayer or reflection daily, whether it's in the morning or the evening, whenever you have moments. Schedule it. Make it a purposeful interaction of quiet prayer and reflection every day, several times a day if you can. And if things start getting to be too much, step away from work or distractions for intentional Sabbath moments. Sometimes we don't have a ton of time, but take a step back, breathe deep, and reconnect with the Father. And a third great way is to write down the pressures that you're feeling and release them in prayer. I love a God box. It could be a mason jar. It could be an old Amazon box. Write down the things that you're feeling, people that you're praying for, things that you need guidance or help with, and you put them in that box and you pray over that box. Release everything into prayer and watch God work. Rest is a holy act of trust. When we pause and let go, we declare that God is in control and not us. So let's take a look at how we can embody grace under pressure from these things that we've learned today. Embrace God's strength in your moments of weakness, always. Prioritize His kingdom and trust Him to meet your needs. Rest and find rest in His presence, allowing Him to restore your soul. The pressures we face are real, but so is God's grace. He equips us, strengthens us, and reminds us that our worth is not tied to what we accomplish, but to who we are in Him. Remember that mountain at the start of the episode that felt nearly impossible to climb? Take His yoke and let Him guide you to the top. God cares for you. He sees the weight you're carrying, and He invites you to lay it down at His feet. Walk forward today in confidence, knowing that through Christ you can handle every pressure with grace, peace, and purpose. Thank you so much for joining me on Well and Grace today. If this episode encouraged you, please share it with a friend who might need a reminder of God's strength and grace. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next conversation. Thank you again for joining me today. My name is Regina Bartlett. God bless. I'll see you next time.
Well and grace for every heart, refreshing souls are set apart. Come to the well, receive His life, living water, endless life.